chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and joins me now from Washington. So, Chairman Rogers, what happened sounds incredibly serious. Why the pushback, then, from the Pentagon on this?
I think they're just trying to make sure that in the case, the way it was reported, that there was a huge amount of information lost. I'm not sure that's accurate, but there was information lost, certainly no doubt about it. And it's concerning for a couple of reasons, Emily. One, it allows our adversaries, the Chinese in this case, to leapfrog up on its technological capabilities. So where they might be 10 years behind, maybe now they're only 8 years behind, or 2 years behind, or 6 months behind on a certain piece of technology. And what that does for us in the government is we're going to have to make sure, do we have to spend more money on this technology to advance our innovation so we can keep that technological edge in all systems. So I think they were just being cautious about the sheer number that was reported. I do believe that there has been some cost here to the U.S. taxpayer through that cyber espionage that the Chinese have committed.
Now, one expert that we spoke with said that techniques, cyber spying techniques that the U.S. used to have a monopoly on, now the Chinese are using widely. Are techniques at the same time improving, or are the Chinese catching up, and are we falling behind?
I'm not sure we're falling behind, but they are catching up exponentially. Remember, this is a nation state that has invested literally billions and billions of dollars in their military and intelligence services capability to conduct cyber espionage, and then they're practicing it every single day. And so the sheer volume of their efforts allows them to continue to get better. So they probe for vulnerabilities, they find those vulnerabilities, they try to exploit those vulnerabilities. And it happens literally thousands and thousands and thousands of times a day. And the sad part is it's not just the Chinese. The Russians are out there. Unfortunately, now the Iranians are up to no good. The North Koreans are getting into the game. We think other nation states are trying to develop their capability when it comes to cyber espionage or computer exploitation. So there is a wide range of concern that presents itself to U.S. interests.
Now, the U.S. is trying to ratchet up diplomatic pressure on China. China always comes back and says, look who's talking. We know that President Obama is meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping next week. What are you expecting to come out of that meeting on a cybersecurity front?
Well, first of all, and I can tell you that the U.S. government does not use its intelligence services to steal intellectual properties from companies operating in China to bring it back to give it to U.S. companies to compete against them. China does. It is at a breathtakingly dangerous pace to the future prosperity of this economy, and that's why we need to do something about it. I hope that they again re-engage. I think you're going to see very near future here, Emily, that the Congress, me included, are getting ready to launch an effort to be more specific, to provide more specific sanctions on the individuals engaged in this activity, maybe even the talk of freezing assets, looking at some trade issues, some tariff issues as we move forward. And we don't go there lightly, and I know the President is going to try to bring this up at a bilateral issue, which is important to do. The second part of this is we have to have this dual track of saying, hey, we're not going to put up with this. We've never seen anything like this in the history of the world. It is absolutely crippling to an innovative economy like ours moving forward, and we've got to do something about it.
Speaking of the President, you've said you might consider, Chairman, a Senate bid, but obviously that your work on the Intelligence Committee is incredibly critical. You know, you've got fans on both sides of the aisle. What about a run for the FBI?
Yeah, well, that won't be my choice. I was honored to have the FBI Agents Association, these are the working men and women of the FBI, say, hey, Mike Rogers would be the guy to do it. I'm humbled by that. I'm going to focus on my work as chairman. It's really an incredibly important time. Cybersecurity, we've come halfway. We've got it through the House. We need to get a bill through the Senate. We're working on CFIUS reform. We're working on all the things to help protect an innovative economy moving forward and still allow for a free and open market. I'm going to concentrate on there, and we'll see where the chips fall.
If the President did pick you for the job, is there anything that you would change about how the U.S. handles cyber espionage by other countries? I mean, obviously, this is your issue. This is something that you know inside and out. Do you think there's something to be changed?
Well, I'm not sure we need to change what we do. We need to be more robust about it. From a legislative perspective, I can tell you that we need to be able to share cyber threat information to the private sector and have the private sector share it back. Currently, the NSA, the National Security Agency, or the CIA goes overseas, finds out what our adversaries and bad guys are doing from a cyber perspective, brings it back and protects government networks. Well, that's great, except we're only about 10% of the networks in the United States. That leaves 90% exposed to what we know and they don't know. And so my argument is a very simple fix here is allow us to share that cyber threat with the private sector. And then this common misconception that the FBI and the CIA and the NSA are monitoring U.S. networks, which is simply not true. It allows them to say, hey, we got this nasty, malicious source code. We'd like you to see it so you can figure it out if it comes from Iran or Russia or China or whatever. And it happens in real time. It's in zeros and ones in the right pattern, hundreds of millions of times a second. That ought to be a very important effort for us. It protects privacy. There are some 27 privacy protection corrections in this bill. It's voluntary, and there is no content. It's not a surveillance bill. So this is a very small, simple thing that our intelligence services believe if we could have that kind of very sophisticated high-level sharing in real time, we could take of the toughest 20%, we could get 90% of that problem solved.
House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers, thanks so much for stopping by, as always, here on Bloomberg.